personal data and privacy. Let's be a little personal. First, let me introduce Darren, who is our sales engineer in UK. And personally, let me share some data about me. The data that I want to share with you. So I'm Jean-Michel Franco. I won't tell my age. You might think it's a little too much. What I can tell privately is I'm passionate about running. I could speak about running during hours. I won't do that today. I'm in charge at Talend of data governance product. You will see those amazing products in action during the session. I have some background in information management, more than 20 years. Again, I won't say the exact number, maybe too much. And I'm very engaged. You will see I'm passionate about privacy and getting control of the data within an environment. So that's what I want to share. But if you think about that, my personal life is probably somewhere, everywhere in a cloud, because now everything is digitalized. So Google knows probably everything about my physical journey, but also my digital journey, but also my physical journey. You know, Android, Google Maps, they know where I am at any time. I said I'm a runner. I have a watch. This watch captures more and more things, my health, my heartbeat, how much I sleep, things like that. Amazon might predict my next purchase better than me. So the question is, I hope I can trust those guys, but how can I be sure? There's someone that I know that I can be sure that I can trust him and that I can give him very private data. It's my doctor. Because my doctor has signed, and this happens in the 4th century, the Hippocratic Oath. So we can share with him private data, and he will give us back insights. And I'm confident not because I trust my doctor, but because I trust the profession. So that's why I think that GDPR is a big thing, not just a law that starts in the 21st of May, but more a kind of call for action in our profession for accountability. Because it's getting big. You know, we know that the data has a lot of value, but there's a risk. There's a dark side of data. So the dark side, we hear much more and more about that in the news. So we hear about data leaks. So you might have heard of Equifax. So this company that was doing credit scoring in US, also for UK, by the way. And this company had a big leak. And what happened since is that some of their CIO, their CEO are no longer in the company, and they lost 30% of their market value, which is $3 billion. So the stakes are high in terms of data leaks. The stakes are high in terms of privacy. You know, the amounts of the fine are getting bigger, and this is a number of the amount of the potential fine in UK that is growing with GDPR. And we have also the thing about data flows. So we understand that it can be very risky to cheat a system of metrics. So think of what happened with the Dieselgate. You know, so we know now that the system was checked, was flown, and because of that, the whole market of automotive is shaken because of that. So the big thing is called data governance, and GDPR is a great call to action for data governance. It starts in less than 200 days now, so we know that the potential fine is pretty heavy, 4%. So what is interesting for us as data professional is that the topic now gets to the exec level. So a CFO, a CMO would care about 4% of our revenue. We know that we haven't devoted enough effort from now. So the second number you see, 0.004%, is the estimated amount that we dedicate to data protection currently in our company as a comparison of our overall revenue. And so that's why you hear that most of the company are not ready to meet the deadline. So the question is, are you? Because it's a pretty big thing. So GDPR, there's 3 dimensions in GDPR. There's a legal one, legal compliance. There's a security, IT security one, and there's a data governance one. The 2 first, okay, every company has a legal department, so has accountability on that. Most of the companies, they have a chief security officer that is accountable on IT security. But data governance, not much company has a CDO, not much company have someone who is responsible of that. And so what is this about? What it is all about? So the first thing is that you need to know your data. You need to know exactly what are the personal data that you are handling in your company. And this discipline, knowing your data, is called metadata management. You need to track and trace your data. So for example, with GDPR, you need to collect consent, opt-in consent, and you need also to prove consent. So that means that you need to assemble a kind of 360-degree view of your customers and employee and get all this information about the consent they get and in which context. You need to protect the data because sometimes the data has not to be published as personal data, so you can mask the data, for example. You need to engage the workforce, so make people accountable when they work with personal data. And last, and this is a very important and maybe the most difficult topic to tackle with GDPR, the principle of GDPR is that the customer can regain control over his data. So you need to be able to share the data with your customer. You need to be able to grant him access to it, to allow to ask for rectification, to allow for deletion, the right to be forgotten. So that's all the disciplines that you have to articulate in your data governance efforts. So that's the theory. So let's try to get a little more practical. So for a while, let's pretend that I'm not from Talend, that Darren is not anymore from Talend, and that we represent a retail company. And we are a retail company. I'm, by the way, the marketing manager from this retail company. And I see that the winter sales, the Black Friday sales are coming soon. And now we are a data-driven company. So I want to use the benefits of personalization. For this sales, I want to have personalized experience with my customer. I want that when a customer connects to my mobile application or to my website, he can be directed to the articles that meets exactly their size, their preference, color preference, next a typical budget or thing like that. So that would be a great idea. In fact, I forecasted that it will grow my revenue by 3 million euros. So pretty good. But I want it to happen fast, and suddenly I get an email from my DPOs that say, oh, you are personalizing things? So are you sure you got the content? How will you give back the data to your customer, the right to access, the right of portability? So I have this question from my DPO. And now I know I need to meet Darren to see how we will, in practice, address that. How can we get the opt-in from our customer in our campaign? How can we give back the data to our customer? It might be a tricky meeting because I bet my forecast for this quarter, so I want this to happen in 2 weeks. And generally, when I talk to Darren, my IT guy, he says, oh, 8 weeks. So let's discuss. You are invited in this meeting. So Darren, hello.
Hi, Jean-Michel. So, wow, you want to do what in 2 weeks? Okay, so
personalization.
Personalization. Yeah. So as we now know, personalization has additional qualifications that we need to apply to any project that enables us to use personalized information in a dedicated way. So, you know, in this particular remit, let's see how somehow a methodology or maybe technology can help us with solving this challenge and driving our productivity. So how do we achieve this compliance? Well, the first thing we need to do is understand where we host information about customers' opt-in strategies. So people have to explicitly declare that they want their personal information, you know, to be used within personalized campaigns. So we are looking and managing the concept of opt-in, okay? The idea that somebody has given us the privilege to use their information. So without that information, we really can't start your campaign. So first of all, we need to find it. Now, I heard that you kind of had some information in some sort of data lake.
Yes, we have a partner that.
Okay, firstly, we have to find where this opt-in information has come from, this marketing agency, so we can start using it. The next thing we want to do is basically integrate that opt-in information into our 360-degree view of our customers and clients, right? So it becomes an attribute of who our customers are, so we understand from a trusted source perspective what status that particular customer is from a GDPR opt-in perspective. So we need to integrate that opt-in data into our existing customer 360-degree view so that then we can manage the propagation of personalized information and potentially across other systems, other campaigns, mobile devices, mobile platforms, etc. So the challenge is just growing here in terms of what we need to do. And ultimately, you under GDPR regulation now have to also prove consent. So if anyone challenges us in this personalized campaign, we have to show them where that information about opt-in came from and also enable them to port or view the information that we hold on them. So, you've suddenly made what seems like a very simple marketing campaign quite complex in terms of the obligations around GDPR. So let's just take a look at how this process might work. So this is typically how, I receive things from Jean-Michel. Sorry, it's looking a little small there. But basically, if I zoom in here, we've all had these emails. We have an urgent need to run a new campaign, deliver a new IT project to do X, Y, Z in a zillionth of the time that you're used to. Okay, so the interesting thing here is there's some terminology in Jean-Michel's request or Hiteshi's request here in terms of what they want to do, and some of the key aspects here are really around some of this opt-in information that we referred to. It just so happens that from an organization perspective, we've implemented recently a metadata management platform and a business glossary platform to help us articulate the business terms and the intent of business terms to our technical metadata. So let's just have a look what opt-in actually means to us as a company. So again, let's just do that. Okay, so what I'm doing here is dynamically basically searching across our metadata management and business glossary, looking at what does opt-in actually mean. Sorry, it looks a little bit small to you there. But the point here is that I'm immediately getting a definition of what opt-in means. It's part of the GDPR regulation, so I've also got some information about its hierarchy and what aspect it sits in. So let's just drill through a little bit more into exactly what this term means and where it exists in our organization. So I'm logging into our metadata management project here, and what this shows me is the business glossary of what opt-in means. Okay, so we can see that opt-in as a term means something that somebody can, it's an unconfirmed or a doubly confirmed status. Now we're looking at something that we need to double confirm from an opt-in status. So we have all of the business definitions of what this term means. We can also look at the trace the semantic usage and see of what glossary it forms part. So we know from a terminology point of view that the concept of opt-in is part of our GDPR glossary. So we're understanding the semantic nature of some of these requests and what they mean to us as a company, that we can state as to what they mean to us as a company. But that's only the start of the journey. Knowing what somebody's asking you to do from a GDPR perspective is one thing. Knowing how to solve the problem is another. So the other thing that we can do here is by associating our technical metadata in our platforms with our business glossary, we can start exploring the relationship between what we intend to do with data and what that data actually is. So if I drill through here and actually start to look at where that term is used, I'm starting to get a view across our technical platforms of where the concept of opt-in is being used and managed. Okay, and that's probably a little difficult for you to see, so let's just graph that. Okay, so let me just can I make that bigger? There you go. So basically what we see here is, we have an understanding of opt-in from a business glossary of terms, okay? So over here is basically our semantic definition of what we're looking for. And now we're relating it or stitching it to the technical metadata that exists in our enterprise. So I can see that, technically business glossary, there's a concept of opt-in, but we're using it in our CRM system. And we're also using it in our master data management system. And that master data management system is populating our data warehouse from which we're driving a whole series of Tableau reports about that personalization campaign, okay? And I can drill through into here and see exactly, where these concepts are being used. So there's, in our master data, we have a tag or an element here called opt-in, and that reflects to something elsewhere in different forms, okay? But the important thing here is, Jean-Michel, that I think we're using our opt-in data already, so I don't see what the problem is.
Yes, there's a problem. that's where. Yeah, I will zoom. So, you are talking about the CRM system. It's here, you see.
Yep.
And the opt-in I got from my marketing campaign are there. So it's not related. So this is a big problem for me, because that means that for any customer in our CRM system, we don't know the opt-in. So I cannot personalize anything at that time.
Okay. This lineage has basically showed us that there's something out here in the data lake that basically is customer opt-in information that is not currently linked to our concept of mastering. So it appears that, well, let's just have a look at our master data a second. Let me just log into our master data. Sorry, let's just go down here. So this is our master data system. Let's log in, see what we have in terms of customer information. Okay, so here's the concept of customers. Yeah, see, we've modeled the opt-in here, and let me just search to see if I can find somebody where we have opt-in information. Let's just run that search. Okay.
See?
So I get it. So we've actually modeled the concept of opt-in in our customer master, but we haven't yet populated it. We haven't actually found the right source for this. Okay, so going back to our world of understanding where things are, we can see that exists out in the data lake. This is actually a data lake with your customer opt-in data. So Jean-Michel, let me introduce you to a tool that you can use to start navigating and understanding that opt-in data, and maybe presenting it in a way that is suitable for me to use to blend with our customer master, okay? Because ultimately the information that marketing might use is not in a good form for what we want to use from an IT perspective. So let me introduce you.
So you want me to do your job?
In a way. Okay, so remember this tool that I showed you some time ago. It's called data preparation. It's really for business users to wrangle and prepare some initial raw data into a format that might be suitable for you. So let me just log in for you and show you and remind you some of the aspects here. Okay, so let me log in here. So, oops, let me just do that. It's supposed to say more than hello world. Let me just do that again. Okay, so here we are in the data preparation tool, and as I mentioned to you before, you need to basically connect to your data set out in a data lake here to present the information that you can start working with and blending with. So I gave Jean-Michel a training session on this before, so he should be fine.
Okay, so we will see how looks my data in the marketing system, and then actually, I will give you that back.
Just make that a little larger a second.
Yeah. Okay. So what we'll do is that we'll access to my marketing system. So currently it's in Hadoop. And so we will create a data set. I will create a data set for you. So it's my marketing leads from marketing system. So I'll put my username to connect the system. And then we'll enter into a discovery of my marketing data. So what we want to do here is to get all the data of the customer that gave already their opt-in through this marketing application. So that's what we will discover. So currently the system is looking at the data. And you can see that the system already discovered that, for example, the third field might be a last name, the fourth might be an email. However, I see that the first line is not related to my actual data, rather it's a header. So I will ask the software to make it as a header. And then I can enter into discovery mode. So I can browse my data. So for example, the last column is the opt-in. So as I mentioned, we want to consider only the customers that had given their opt-in. So I will select those customers. I will keep those filter rows in my sample. And I will look at the indication. I will be guided by the tool. So for example, the phone numbers. So you can see that first, they are US phone, but they are not formatted in a standard way. And I presume that you prefer to have a standard way to make your phones in your system. So let's ask the data preparation tool to put the phone data into an international format. So I'm using the command, so that's what he proposed by default, by the way, and I can apply. And all my phone number are in the right format for CRM. But still, you can see that I have an orange flag, so there are invalid rows. So I don't want to have bad data back in my CRM system, so I will clear the cells that has invalid rows. Sorry, yeah, your mouse is very sensitive. Make it bigger. Oh, I did it too much bigger. Yeah, it's his mouse. Yeah. And put it in the right way.
Yep.
So I see also that the dates are not the right way for our CRM system. So let's format the dates. So let's find the function that can change date formats, and then use maybe an English standard and submit. So there we are. So maybe I can download the file to give you back?
No. So under GDPR, basically, no more sending of spreadsheets, no more emailing of personal data, no more. Okay, so as part of a government process, we now understand how you can present this information around opt-in data that we can use, but it needs to be done in a protected and governed way. You can't just send this information around the enterprise any longer. So let me introduce you to a mechanism where we can take what you have here. So let's just take what is known as your preparation. We're going to save that, and if I just simply notify IT that preparation is now available for use, we can now industrialize the process that you outlined on the original data, but do it in a secure and governed way. No more moving of data via email and things like that, okay? So now we revert to basically a governed process of taking your sanctioned or your prepared marketing leads and now blending them with our master data. So let me introduce you to a tool that we do use in IT, okay? So this is an example of a data pipeline that we'd model in IT. And what we're doing here is essentially, and very, very simply, taking your marketing leads you had, running the preparation you just created, but blending them and matching them now against our existing mastered customers. So if you remember, our mastered customers didn't have any opt-in information when we first looked at them. So now what I'm doing is matching the preparation and the marketing leads that you just created in a governed way with our mastered data, so that we can understand if we can now match customers to add the opt-in status, or indeed whether we've got new customers which we need to add information to.
So do you mean that now all my opt-in data will be ready for this new campaign?
Well, in general, yes. So at the back end here, what you'll see is a number of new marketing leads and existing MDM customers being updated, but also there may be some anomalies. There may be some discrepancies between a customer marketing lead that you've provided and one that we have, that we might need some human intervention to mediate in that selection or survivorship. And that's where we'd introduce the concept of data stewardship and governance, but we'll leave that for another day. So ultimately, I believe now that we've run a process to update our master data. So let's just take a look. So if I go back to my master data, sorry, it's under here, and I just refresh this, we can now see that in our master data, we now have a populated attribute around the opt-in status. So let's just take a look at this person. It's Catherine Fisher. And if we drill through into the opt-in data, where is it? latest opt-in status. Again, I'll make this a little larger, maybe for you to see. What we can see is that this individual, Catherine Fisher, has officially opted in. We've recorded the data which that opt-in is and which system provided the opt-in information. So we've got complete lineage and understanding of where that grant was given and what date that grant was given, in case there's any expiry date on this as well.
So if the regulator or the customer himself asks for the proof of consent?
So this is, well, yeah, we wouldn't expose our native mastered system to that user. So I tell you what we've done in IT is added a new data portability user interface. So for example, if I just take the number of Catherine, sorry, just grab that. Was it 26338? So we've added a new data portability interface. So if a customer logs into us, 23668, and with their password of what we're doing now, what we should be doing, did I get that wrong? 26338, dyslexia creeping in. What we're doing now is providing our data subjects with access to personalized information which we have governed and providing access to them. So Catherine Fisher here, we can see all of the personal data that we have on them that they can self-serve through their own secure portal into our organization, understanding when that consent was given from where, but also expose to them the ability to port that information. So again, one of the regulatory requirements of GDPR is to enable you to port that. So for instance, I'm going to ask for that data to be sent to me in Excel format. Okay, so portability of your personal data is another part of the regulation, not only providing access to the data subjects, but them requesting you to port it in various formats that you can then support. And again, if I just look into my emails here, just at 3:37 just arrived, I can look here, and basically there's a little Excel spreadsheet that's just been created with my portability data that I can take to another provider, I can take elsewhere. But this was all done as part of a governed process without you moving personal data around the enterprise, and part of something that we can now demonstrate lineage and complete control over how that data is released and to whom.
Okay.
So, just to wrap up here, just to recap of where we were in the actual demonstration. If you remember, the first thing we did is figure out where this opt-in information existed in our enterprise and how to get access to it, and we used metadata management to do that. The second part of what we did is actually when we found where that data resided, we actually started building a self-service process to enable marketing to prepare that information and then blend it with our existing mastered information to drive updates to our mastered platform. Once we have that information in our mastered platform, we have the ability to prove consent. We have an audit trail. We have an auditable version of where that consent came from and how valid that consent is from a date perspective. And the final part of what we saw was basically enabling this subject access and portability, the guarantee that you can expose information you hold on an individual, and mastering that concept is obviously key to that, and how you can provide that over secure channels.
Okay, so let's take back our Talend hats and maybe wrap up. So we wanted in this session to have a very practical example of how you can turn an information system into a GDPR compliant system using data governance. So as next step, so I can advise to use and look at deeper in our white paper, which is at our booth, at our Talend booth. We have a self-assessment survey. It's a 20-minute survey where you can self-assess against your readiness with GDPR compliance. And then I would advise to get pretty rapidly practical using topics like how will I address the portal for the data subjects or the consents, such as in the example we highlighted. So I hope we gave some lights on how to progress with GDPR. So we're happy to discuss further with you. So thanks a lot for your attention. Thanks.